Thank you for tuning in to Radicards.com. I'm your host, Patrick Greeno. And today we have Brian Hayes of Lingua Sports Cards joining us today. Brian, thanks again for joining us. I'm really happy to have you here. This will be fun.
Glad to be here once again, Patrick.
We're going to do an episode of random picks. Now, I have a category on Radicards, a written one, where you can go and actually see some of these previous, editions, if you will, where we select a card at random from our collections and talk about them. Now, when I say at random, we're not actually looking at any of them. I'm actually closing my eyes and selecting something at random from my collection. In this case, we're actually talking about two graded cards. So this will be kind of interesting. I'm going to start, and then Brian Hayes will finish off with the conversation. So we're probably looking about 5-6 minutes per person here. So let's just get right into it here. So strong start. My card that I select at randomly without looking is this here 1990 ProCards Richmond Braves David Justice minor league card. Right now, as you know, David Justice started his career in the majors with the Atlanta Braves in 1990. He's found in all the usual suspects in the brands, Upper Deck, Donruss Rookies, Score. He's even in the Leaf product, which is, I think, the better card to have. Upper Deck is the late series. And so he was a real big prospect and rookie in 1990. He was the guy that a lot of us followed. Always in Topps Traded as well, if you can get that with. That's a good one to have. It's classic. But I remember getting his cards and filing them. I had a section for Dave Justice. Back then, I didn't pronounce his whole name. It was Dave Justice. And so later in his career, they actually uses his full name, David Justice. And he was the guy to watch. He was the big one to watch from the Atlanta Braves. And I've always liked Dave Justice, and I always thought he had a good look to him. And he had some successful years in the Atlanta Braves, and that 1990 Leaf card was the one to get. I remember that was the big card. And so this comes from the ProCards run, and it features a whole lot of other great players. It's a pretty big run. Frank Thomas actually has a minor league card in the ProCards run from 1990, and so that's how I actually found out about this set, because of Frank Thomas. And the set is peppered with a bunch of these guys who went on to have big league careers and Hall of Fame careers and whatever. So I was actually really glad to grab this for what it was, because it was just a couple bucks when I bought it. And I think it was because, the reason why I bought this is because I had bought something else from the seller, and I was like, let me see what else they have. And then I found this, and I was like, well, I don't think anybody else is going to get this card. I may as well just grab it for like $2 or $3 or whatever it was. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't expensive. And it's not rare. So those of you David Justice super hardcore ardent collectors, you probably already have this card. But I wanted to showcase this one because it presents beautifully. It's well-centered. It's a 9, not a 10, but I don't really need a 10 to enjoy the card. I'm not in pursuit of a 10. I just really like this. Is a good young photo of Mr. David Justice, and I'm glad to have this piece. So, Brian, can you share some thoughts on the card?
Well, first of all, this is the first time that I've ever seen this card. So you brought something new to me. So I'm just really enjoying the photo of David Justice here. I haven't thought about David Justice in a couple years probably. So I really appreciate seeing those players that I grew up with, in some of their old cardboard. I can remember back in 91 buying a David Justice 1990 Upper Deck card and just being really thrilled with that, just like at a card show. So I was pretty familiar with some of his earlier cards, but I have not seen this one before. So it's just it's a nice card. Some of those minor league sets, they sort of have different quality as to how professional do they look. Sometimes it's just basically like a generic photo with some bland design. But this one here, ProCards, they put a little work into it. It's not flashy or anything like that, but you've got a wood grain border. I would say it's on the upper echelon of like a early 90s minor league card, and that's something that I can appreciate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of the set. I don't have too many cards from the set, but I've got some of the other stars that are in the set. And when I'm going through bargain bins and I find them, I'm usually prompted to grab them because they're available and affordable. Uh, really cool stuff. I like this. A couple different tips you might know. He was married to Halle Berry for a number of years in the early '90s, and he was cast really well in the movie Moneyball. The person that played him looks a lot like him. I think he was cast extremely well in that movie. Um, so I'm still a big fan of him. He sort of his career sort of tapered over time, but you know I stop and look at his cards when I come across them. I may not buy them all, but I stop and look because it reminds me of being young and collecting his rookie year professional stuff. I still have a lot of that stuff. The 1990 Upper Deck one was the one that stuck with me when I was younger. I was like, oh my gosh, I got the 1990 Upper Deck. And one Christmas, I think it was the Christmas of 1990, I got the Topps Traded set from 1990, and David Justice is in there. And I remember being like, wow, I got the David Justice card from the traded set. So cool. So good memories from when I was young.
Yeah, just one other thing. So I mentioned I had the 1990 Upper Deck David Justice. I bought that at a card show. At that same card show, I also bought 1990 Upper Deck Griffey. And at the time, I was sort of equating. I had Justice on the same level as Griffey. They were both, up and coming players, beautiful swings. Just I was sort of equated them in my mind. Griffey in the American League, Justice in the National League there for a while. It's really interesting. It's a lot of good memories. This card has sort of brought back to my earlier collecting days. Just a great player. He had a solid career. Obviously not a Griffey-like career, but he was a stud. He had some really great seasons, and it's nice for me once again to see him on a card that I haven't seen him on before.
Yeah, you brought him up with Griffey, and they were both left-handed swingers.
Yep.
So that's a nice tie-in. So there you have it. This is my 1990 ProCards Richmond Braves David Justice minor league card in a PSA 9. Thank you so much, and I'll give it off to Brian Hayes now to close us out. Brian, what did you grab at random from your collection?
Yep, so I actually grabbed at random here, I have a basketball card. It's also PSA graded. It's a PSA 9, and believe it or not, I pulled the only Michael Jordan card that I have in my entire collection. I have one, and this is it. It's a 96 Flair Showcase Hot Shots of MJ. I picked this card up about 2.5 years ago. I just, I wanted Michael Jordan into my collection for so many reasons, and I just really like this card. I'm big into 90s inserts, and it's got, gold foil. It's die cut. It's a great action shot. I really like cards where it feels like the player is jumping right out of the card, and I feel like this is one of those. It's just it's just so distinct. It's memorable. Just the flames. I could just stare at this card for a long time, and I think once again in a PSA 9 those are PSA 9. I think those are great values. In so often the case, Jordan 90s cards in a PSA 10, those can really get to be quite expensive. But I don't know if they have, not always do they have the same value as a 9. Usually those 9s they're attainable, obviously, for a lot of reasons. And this card though, this is one of the highlights of my. It's one of the cornerstones of my collection, especially my basketball card collection. Michael Jordan's inserts, or all of his cards really from the 90s have, they've skyrocketed in value over the years. And, I was really glad to get this card into my collection when I did. And I'm still just shocked that this was the random card that I pulled, but I did. And, it's been a little while actually since I've taken it out to really appreciate it. So it's just kind of nice to see it. And, MJ really can't beat it.
I'm glad that I brought a card to the table that's of similar caliber.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're right there. Just right there.
They're right next to each other in value and caliber, and rarity and desirability and collectability.
Yeah.
Because you and I both know that David Justice minor league cards rival in value to 90s insert Jordan stuff. Everybody knows this. What a great set. Man, I remember when 97 Flair Showcase came out. I was actually floored by this product in baseball. I mean, we have 3 different tiers, and each tier has a different design. It showcases a different photo, and they're just some are, the lower that you go in tiers, the more rare they get, and of course the legacies and the masterpieces are all equally rare. The legacies are all equally rare. The masterpieces are all equally rare. I liked this product because of the quality. The quality is what just blew me completely away. I was so shocked by the quality of the production, and their inserts were of no. They were of no difference to that in that capacity. In baseball, we had hot gloves, which with the same flame background. In basketball, we have hot shots. We have this really cool die cut and thick. The cards are actually thick. They're not your standard 20 point. They fit in like a 55 top loader instead of a 20 top loader. And so
Right.
I really, really desired these cards when they came out. Didn't follow basketball, just baseball. So when I actually saw this card, I was like, wow, those are really clean, beautiful. I love the portrayal of fire in the background. I love that the flames aren't too many. They almost seem like a medium spread of flame, which I think is it's tastefully done. Too many flames would be kind of like maybe not as desirable because it wouldn't look as nice, and my focus would be out of the center of the card where Jordan is shooting and onto this crazy spike flames. Whereas here they're mild, they're low, they kind of just they're there, but they're there subtly, and I really like the gradient left to right, yellow to red. I love that it's not top to bottom. I think that is a really cool touch that they went left to right. They went on the x-axis instead of the expected y-axis for flame color. I thought that's a really nice touch, and it really brings out this kind of makes Jordan come to life in the card. And the card makes Jordan seem very animated in that way. I like the basketball in the background with the text wrapped around. That to me, from a design perspective, really works. It's nice. The gold foil, it's just done really well. And I think that Flair did this really well. They produced a set that showcases the best players of the era, and not too many of them. And these are really actually very difficult to pull. And even to this day, these cards are still highly collectible.
Yeah.
They're some of the most collectible, I'd say, in the 1997 block. That's how I feel. There are others that are more valuable, but these, from a design perspective, are some of the best I've ever seen. I absolutely love this card. What a great card to pick. And you said it's your only Jordan.
Yep, it's the only Michael Jordan card I have in my collection. So I was quite shocked, but quite excited when I picked this at random. But yeah, to echo all of your comments, this Hot Shots insert set is great. I believe it's a 20-card insert set, if I'm not mistaken. So at any rate, the quality of the set is just awesome. All the top stars from the day. And once again, for me, what makes the card special is the card itself is great, but it's also the era from which the card came from. It's just when I became, was sort of coming to age, really getting into sports, the NBA. It just takes me back to those days. And so, I mean, this card, it was a winner in the 90s. It's a winner now. It's just, obviously MJ. I mean, could talk about him for a long time. It's just a cornerstone card to my collection, and I still feel shocked that I pulled this one, but I'm so glad that I did.
It's such a great card. I'm so glad that we're talking about this set because this is one of those times when the hobby was really, really carving itself out into this interesting category of collectibles. Very, very interesting with these the different brands that were trying to outdo each other. That, to me, I think, is what draws me a lot to this era of card collecting because everything was so interesting.
Yeah.
Design, insertion ratios, player quality, just everything about it just really worked because of competition. And this is just a testament that competition is actually helpful for markets. And so I'm a big fan of this set.
Yeah, I mean, just that era, those rare inserts were, in my opinion, they were just more mythical back in the day because, the internet hadn't become what it is today. So back in the 90s, if a lot of times you might be aware of what different cards are, but actually seeing them, you know, it was much more difficult than now. Even, you know, nowadays, rare cards, you know, you can see photos of them. You can see them on eBay or different, you know, online sites. But there was just something mythical, in my opinion, once again, in the 90s with the cards. And just the change in technology has sort of changed how we interact with cards, both in our own collection and cards that we don't own.
Yeah, man, great pull. I'm glad you're able to randomly grab that card. And by the way, this is presently Brian's only Jordan, but I would feel at least partially confident in assuming that at some point he's going to get another Jordan card.
Yeah, I've got a couple in mind, so sooner or later. But yeah, it'll happen. But it's always a rare treat. I'm pretty selective. I mean, I'm pretty selective in the cards that I add, and so it's got to be, you know, a combination of the right card, the right design, the right condition. You know, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts that are pretty clear in my mind, but when you sort of bring them all together, it's actually, you know, it's not. It takes a lot of work for all those components to sort of come together at the same time to actually go ahead and make the transaction.
Right. Good stuff, man. I'm glad we talked about that one. That one's great, and certainly a one-up over my David Justice. If you're still watching after the David Justice, you've made it this far to look at this, so congratulations. Thank you for tuning in to Radicards.com. I'm your host, Patrick Reno. Thank you, Brian Hayes, for joining us. And until next time, enjoy collecting. If you like this content, please subscribe. Thank you. Enjoy collecting.